And a warm welcome to this week's edition of Yilungelo Lakho. It's your right. SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. SABC Plus. Mbugeli, what is consumer justice when the battle does not result in money back into consumers' pockets? Well, one of South Africa's consumer rights bodies, the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman, brags about having returned millions into your pockets recently. Consumers are open to instances of costly injustice and abuse every time they interact with providers of goods and services in the market space, and often with little or no remedy. Already, consumers had lost 13 million rand to unscrupulous service providers. Asasive ukuthi ke le mali ibuyisela kanjani emakhikhini ebathengi labadlelwe. Kukhuluma kabanti ke ngale ndzaba yethu asesimukele ke Queen Munyayi lomele ke ihhovisi lemcatululo wetinkinga tebathengi pheceleti ke i-Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman. Siphinde sibeke na Theze Mabuza lokhulumela ke ihhovisi le National Consumer Commission. Ladies, good afternoon. Sanamukela lihlelo.
Sikubingelele.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, ndawucala ke ngawe Marithezi ukuthi ke le headline noma ke lesihloko sethi indzaba lesithi ke 12 million rand ubuyiselwe ke emaphoketheni noma ke emakhikhini ebathengi lathi khanze ke sebasetingingeni nema service providers abo. Is this a cause to celebrate? Like tithi indzaba letimnanzi leti?
Ngingasho nje kuthina sicala nje lapha lesicala khona ku Consumer Goods and Services Ombuds tindzaba letinhle leto ngoba at that level ngilapha ke sithatha wena njengomthengi sithathe no soma business wakho simhlanganise lokho sikubita kuthi mediation. So at that level is at grassroots where in sikhanza ukuthi wena esumthengi ngaleso sikhathi leso it's not an investigation, it's the first level of a consumer protection. So githi that is a progress so far.
Right, right. And what's your thought about this particular headline?
My thought as a Consumer Goods and Services Ombud, it shows, just as a commissioner has said, that there is a first level. What happens is that when the consumer goes to the shops, ayothenga something, and angekho happy, we always encourage that they go back to the supplier or kuleyo shop where they are buying from, and get redress from them if anything goes wrong. As if something does not go right there, if angekho happy about the outcome, then we become, as the ombudsman, we become the first level of escalation. As an independent body, we come in to mediate now. Sihlalise umthengi, even the supplier, and we mediate, listening to both their stories, looking at fairness, looking at the Consumer Protection Act.
Okay. Now, before singena ke Shikta Enzabeni, I would love to both of you to just share with us, you know, the kind of work that your offices do. Nekuthi ke nihlangana kanjani i National Consumer Commission kanye ke ne Consumer Goods Ombudsman nihlangana kanjani, because there may be some confusion. Ukuthi nangabe ke ngivelele inkinga ne supplier noma ne service provider, who do I go to? Do I turn to you or do I turn to you? Ndawucala ngawe Queen.
Okay. In terms of the Consumer Protection Act, the commissioner is the custodian of the CPA.
Okay.
So about 10 years ago, or even 10 years plus, there was a gap in the industry where the industry, because in terms of CPA, each industry can set up their own ombud, which is an independent body who is put or set up to mediate complaints. And at that level, it's an informal mediation. It's not a legalistic or a formal setting. Whereas at the commission, it becomes a formal because they are a regulator. So this now was the industry's initiative, the industry of goods and services, that we want to have our own ombud, and they drafted a code. And this code was then submitted to the NCC.
Okay.
And the NCC looks at the code and makes a recommendation to the minister to say this is what the industry wants to do. They want to have their own ombud, which is an alternative dispute resolution. So that is a space where we use negotiation. If we look at the Amakaya, how things they work, people always go ebukhosini and talk things out amongst themselves. And that was the whole point around the mediation process, that before we become legalistic about this whole thing, can we set up a space where people can talk amongst themselves? And if they resolve their issues at that level, then there's no need to inundate or to burden the commissioner into looking at each and every individual complaint. And that's how we come in. We become the first level. And if complaints at the level of mediation are not resolved, that's when we then refer the matter further to the NCC. So they become the next level. From supplier to consumer, it comes to us as the ombud. If it fails at that level, the next level becomes the NCC.
Okay, Tezi, your thoughts? Will there be a clash of roles between your offices?
No, akuna clash of ama roles ngoba lokulesinako ukuthi mthengi at that level. Remember kudzala nasikhuluma ngetitolo. Stolo besisekhoneni la kubaba umsibi noma kubaba uMahlangu, wherein you would go uyoboleka ngisho nempuphu over the end of the month, then uyobhadala. So the issue of ombud was there to ensure ukuthi lo lengithenga kuyo every day eduze nam, I am able ukuthi send my relationships ukusinaka ngabe akukho kuvana, then siyacazulula kahle siphindze futhi sithengiselane. And then what we do is as a role ombud is to mediate, wherein now they bring our parties together. Let's say uthenga imoto or uthenge nje ikhabet liyaphuka. So we want to now narrow down our issues ukuthi siyavumelana ngithengiselile. Then is it within 6 months? So they narrow down our issues. Then sithole ukuthi kahle hle imbangela noma lokhu lokuyi dispute kuyini. Then ombud then tries to say, bring the law in ukuthi no, nangabe no uthengile, then wangidilivela, then after a particular time le khabet lam laphuka wangalungisi, then what does the act say? So the bona they will say to the businessman, I-act iti lilungise within 6 months.
Right.
Then nangabe the consumer was wrong again, they will say to the consumer, remember le khabeti bekumele ngabe bowulisula ungasuli ngemandi, ulisula ngepolish and all that ukuze kuthini ngakhukhumali and all that. So they bring both parties ukuthi babone ukuthi what are their problems, and then from there, once we have narrowed down our issues, if supplier says no again, then they come to us. Then from our side we become now legalistic. Asisakhulumi ngokuthi no ungenda so wende so. Sithatha umthetho siubeke lana, sithathe nama lona yo information as a consumer to sithenge ngaliphi ilanga yaphuka ngaliphi ilanga wenda njani. So see, now we are very legalistic, because now if we go to a court, then we lose or we win. Whatever that we take to a court can be challenged even to Supreme Court of Appeal. So our areas are more of the investigative role, which is legalistic, more like the Criminal Justice Act. Kumele sibe ne-evidence.
Look, sure, niba neutral, noma you take a neutral stance, not necessarily ukuthi ni protector ema rights, noma emalungelo ema consumer, as your name denotes, because abantu abaningi bathi cha i-NCC vele nje ifavor emalungelo ebathengi, the consumers, not particularly ema suppliers.
Yeah, but thina si neutral, we are more like ngithi singama investigators ngemaphoyisa siphindze futhi sibe nge-NPA ngoba siyaye sithathe lenzaba yakho siyise court and become ama prosecutors on your behalf. So si neutral, si blind. All that we do is ama facts nemthetho.
Okay. Now Queen, which areas have you received the number of complaints from?
Looking at the previous financial year, Peleng February 2023, we looked at the previous financial year and we see that top of the complaints are mainly online purchases. And bengakonjalo before COVID. Before COVID, ama complaints begugcwele lawo, for instance, goods where things get defective within 6 months. Now, since COVID, before COVID, it was less than 2%. In the previous financial year, we are seeing 34% of complaints. Sivale ama complaints are 10,769 in the previous financial year. Of that, 34% related to transactions that are happening online. Okusho ukuthi the consumers have now changed. They have now moved away from working eitolo bayotenga. Most of the consumers have now moved to purchasing stuff online. Followed by transactions which relates to telecommunications, satellite or for instance, solars, yes, that is also coming up. Also, furnitures and appliances that get defective, either because of a defect from the supplier or the manufacturer or the retailer. So those are the top of the list where consumers are complaining about.
All right, I've got so many questions for both of you, but please do join us after this break. Yilungelo Lakho, don't you move a muscle. Sakomola ke futhi ngibukele namhla ke if you just joined us sivakashelo ke lihhovisi le National Consumer Commission kanye ke lehhovisi le Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman kusichazela kabanzi ukuthi yini umsebenzi wabo netsuke wena kungasitakala kanjani nangabe utfole ke ushayele ke sakeni i-supplier noma ke i-service provider. Ladies, I want us to get deeper into this conversation ekutheni ke nangabe i-dispute cannot be resolved by your office noma cannot be resolved by your office kuthi ke ngicina sengiye kuphi?
From our side, Consumer Goods and Services, if a dispute normally cannot be resolved, they would declare and close that matter and give a consumer that leeway to say, go and approach the commission. Now, when they approach us, in this case now, as Velenje investigate and investigate and all that. No, you were done unfairly by a supplier. Then we take the matter to a court. So we become again our prosecutors. So sinama section mabili, we investigate, spin the foot, then we prosecute. Then we go to court on your behalf as a consumer at the National Consumer Tribunal. But then in that case as well, there would be certain cases, we would say they are criminal in nature, wherein a supplier would just take deliver and all that. In those matters, we will investigate and then don't get the supplier. Then we'll refer those matters to NPA, then it becomes a criminal matter.
Okay. So in instances where a service provider, no a supplier, has had done several consumers, do you do like a group case for each one of everyone, of all these consumers? No, nangabe case you say resolve for one consumer, is it binding on the other consumers as well?
Okay, I think as we have indicated earlier that Tinage as the ombud, we don't have investigative powers. Tina siya based on the negotiations, negotiate fairly, using fairness and with reference to the law. But we are not legalistic, as I said, so we don't really go into a formal space. And in most cases where complaints are resolved at our level, it's not necessarily that supplier is wrong. Sometimes in the interest of retention of a customer relationship, njengoba usistezi said earlier, it's a shop around the corner, you are going to buy there tomorrow, whatever. So they may want to retain that relationship. Yes. So we negotiate. Sometimes suppliers say, yes, even if you were wrong, we were not wrong, we are going to resolve it in your favor. But you walk away with a lesson, okay, this is where I went wrong, this is what I could have done better. So in that case, when we find that all of a sudden there are similar complaints that are coming against this particular supplier about the same thing, then we will collate and raise a flag and let the NCC know we are picking up a trend here which requires investigation. However, asiyenzi group mediation, we just collate all that data and we give to the NCC for the NCC to look into that and investigate, is there an unfair business practice that is happening there? They have all those powers now to investigate and go deeper, even go visit those businesses, which as the ombud we don't have. Okay. Till now we're just negotiating fairly, and that's when we take it to
Right.
to the NCC for further investigation.
So Mshengu, speaking of trend, nangabe ke ngithi ngivula iTV ngibona etindzabeni ngitfola ukuthi ke lihhovisi lenu NCC has ruled against a particular supplier or service provider, and ngitfola ukuthi ke nami ke ngiyi-consumer I was affected by whatever that the NCC has ruled against. So ngavele ngigijime kini ngithole ke whatever recourse noma ke lisito lengilidzingako, noma nje is it automatical ukuthi vele it's binding on all the other consumers?
No, it's not binding, because in this case you would find that we have, let's say, one of the stores. It's let's say my cell phone, noma ithengisa nje libisi. And then you'll find that libisi labo libasawa njalo nje na uthengile and all that. And we find that's a trend in terms of the manufacturer and all that.
Yes.
Nakwendeke njalo, what we do is we will check with other, besides, because Consumer Goods and Services Ombud will alert us ukuthi no, sithole complaint yabani neyabani ngazuthi ayafana lama complaint. We will even ask lamanye ama province ukuthi no, sibona na i-trend ninema complaints na against le supplier lokule kwendakele, maybe let's say i-TV lebuyiswa njalo and all that. In that case, would either check ukuthi i-fault kuphi, is it the supplier, nangabe maybe let's say i-TV, is it the supplier or the manufacturer, nangabe it's the good itself siyayibuyisa. Asase nje ukuthi bekuyi-service ngendlela, let's say lo muntu lalungisa ngako ma-fridge ukuthi uyalungisa nje ma-fridge and after a month seyiphukile njalo, and then kwendeka njalo wena nangabe vele you were hard done, and then kukhona le case lese seyincumile, and then that consumer was repaid. From your side, what we will do, we will still start afresh. Investigate your matter. Nasikhanza ukuthi ngema facts iyafana, si issue lokhu lesikubita ukuthi i-compliance notice. Sivele nje simtshele supplier sithi le fridge yakho vele nje wena kunjalo, na last time these were the facts. Then what we do is we say comply. Na sithi comply, we say lungisa, if ulungisele khwini ngale ndlela na simphiwe mlungisele ngaleyo ndlela leyo. So we call that ama compliance. And in the past 3 years, I think we had issued compliance notices to the effect, I think, of around 12 million on average a year, wherein we will say to a supplier, it's either you repay or you pay, without even going to the tribunal.
Okay, so ngema cases lamangaki for you to issue a compliance notice?
It's only once we have decided, the tribunal has decided on that complaint. Then if a similar one comes along, we simply issue, after we have investigated, facts ayafana, we simply say to the supplier, you comply. And most of the suppliers, they would comply, they will fix it, because abafuni futhi baphinzele futhi ku tribunal. Because what we do is, once it's a repeat offender, then it becomes an aggravating circumstance, wherein now even enhlawulo yabo, the administrative fine becomes higher.
Okay, kuna nakulebatsike termination notice. What is that?
On our side, at the ombud level, when we terminate complaints with that reason, a termination notice, it's when most of the time a supplier is not cooperative. According to the code esisebenza ngayo as the ombud, which was promulgated in 2015, all suppliers in the industry of goods and services that trade there, they are supposed to sign up with our office, with the ombud scheme, and comply with that. So most of the time when the complaint, because we still deal with all complaints, whether they are registered or not, sometimes you will find that we trying to track, and when you'll come with the complaint, you tell something here and there, these are the people, they are refusing to give me recourse. Then they give us the facts and the contact details and who these people are. We try and get hold of those people, we can't get hold of them. Sometimes, because they haven't registered, and most of the cases, that is what we are seeing, that those that haven't come forth and registered, it's difficult to track them down. Sometimes if bathengisa are online, they pull down the website,
Sure.
you can't find them. So it's difficult now. You are sitting with this issue where you can't track down the supplier, or you are batola, but njalo mababona ukuthi siyabafonela or sibathumela email abasaphatha amafoni wethu, they're no longer picking up. We are not able to resolve and get the other side to come to the party or tell them what the complaint is about, and nokuthi sifuna ukuthi bayenzeni. Then that is the case where we close the case and we then refer the complainant to go and approach the National Consumer
Okay.
Commission, and that's when now the investigation can start. even
Right,
lapho.
right. No, asishiye lapho ke kwanye lombukeli siseshejela ngasetitolo. Please don't go away. This is a very, very important discussion. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Kumbula ke nawumukela ukuthi ungaba ingcenye yenkulumo yethu namhlanje ushayela licingo khona manje ku 0117140669 noma ke 0117140670. Ungasithumela futhi ne WhatsApp ku 0608449857. I'm going to repeat that number 0608449857. Ungasithumela futhi ne-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Namhla ke sivakashelwe ke NCC, the National Consumer Commission, kanye ke ne-Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman of South Africa. Now, just picking up on le ndzaba ye-termination notice, kuthi ke, does it also apply online or onke ke ma online transactions?
Not really on all of them, but then sikhanza ukuthi in the trend ukuthi abantu labathenga online abantu ukuthi bathenge esitolo noma bathenga kumuntu. So the Consumer Protection Act doesn't actually protect, ayikuvikeli nangabe uhambile wayothenga kumngani noma kumakhelwane, kumele uthenge kuso stolo noma ku business. So in this case now kuyendeka ukuthi kuma termination notices wethu lamaningi leswathola ku Consumer Goods and Services Ombud bantu laba labathenga online kanzi futhi titolo lesikhuluma ngato titolo wherein it's not a shop in the sense of stolo, it's wherein somebody goes in ku Facebook abone nje umuntu lakathengisa amasofa noma lakathengisa icatfulo avela athenge lapho. So that's a private transaction, you are not protected. So now a problem lenjalo i-Consumer Goods and Services Ombud will terminate that type of transaction, and in that case now you would not get any recourse. So it's not really what we are terminator, it's because there is no recourse within the Consumer Protection Act.
So ngalama fisha ke ECPA it covers only titolo that have an online presence.
Yes.
Okay.
If titolo in an ordinary course of business.
Yes.
Nangabe muntu vele uthengisa furniture, ngisoma business uthengisa furniture noma uthengisa icatfulo, even if they have an online presence, they are covered. But
Yeah.
nangabe ngithezi une beret noma unesicatfulo lesincane kuye sekafuna kusithengisa online, then she's not a supplier in that course.
Okay. Now, Quinn, just take us through some of the cases where, you know, the consumers were unfairly treated.
Okay, part of the 12 million that you spoke about earlier, 12.9 million that we facilitated recovery in the previous financial year, includes a transaction where a consumer ordered stuff online, a plumbing material, and they pay online.
Okay.
Lapho uthola ukuthi the supplier does not have enough stock, and they try and check with the other branches, but bathola ukuthi bekungana stock, and they've already paid over 500,000 online. Then they went back and now asking for their refund.
Yeah.
We had to facilitate to make sure that the consumer get their refund back, and at the end of that, they were able to be refunded. Also, there was another consumer who ordered, and they were quoted on wrong products online. Because when you are buying online, sometimes it automatically takes you to a place where you make payment. Consumer Somar made a payment there while they were quoted on wrong stuff.
Sure.
So that's when they came to us asking us to facilitate close to R1 million that was paid online. It shows you that people bane mali or they were able to pay that much money online, and we had to facilitate a refund in that case. And lastly, there was another transaction of about more than 100,000 where someone during COVID had booked a safari holiday, which was now cancelled due to COVID. So now they're trying to get their money back. They are not getting money, and the supplier is not coming on board. Then we facilitated until the supplier agreed that they will pay back the money in installments. So it took several months for the consumer to get their money back, and we had to facilitate that. So those are the cases where sometimes they then approach us. We help them to recover those funds from the suppliers.
So those cases are part of the 12.9 million rand.
Absolutely, yes.
I mean, 12.9 million rand that has been recovered. Is this an indication, would see so many of my consumer laws are being flouted, La eMzansi?
It's both ways. Lokho kusho ukuthi most consumers now, they know their rights, and then they can stand up for themselves and put their cases across. So nangabe vele nje, because lokho kudzala kwendeka, but because we did not have a voice, we did not have a direction ukuthi then nakwendeke, so where do I go? Now banendlela yokuya ku Consumer Goods and Services Ombuds and then get mediation. Then they get assisted. But on the other side as well, nema suppliers sekayati ukuthi hayibo, once it goes to investigation, my fine will be serious. Nasikhuluma ngema fine to lona to National Treasury now. Last year alone nje on average sibe nama administrative fine ga 21 million to different companies, directly to, not even to the consumers, directly to treasury funds, where in now if you are found guilty, then there will be a penalty.
Sure. Your thoughts, Queen, about whether, you know, there's a loophole in consumer laws, I mean, that led to some of the suppliers and service providers flouting some of the consumer laws?
Yes, I would agree with the Commissioner is saying that there is a bit of a gap somewhere. However, more and more consumers yes, now are aware of their rights. Suppliers also, they are coming on board. They are participating, those that know about us. But what I've also picked up as a challenge in looking at the 10,700 cases that we closed in the previous financial year, about 43% of those were resolved in favor of consumers, meaning Guti, AMA suppliers responded positively, like the 3 cases that I gave an example, they ended up resolving. But there is another 35% of suppliers of these 10,000 who we had to close the cases because they were not cooperating, which is a disappointing factor because we still have suppliers who are trading in the goods and services in the goods and services space or industry, but they are claiming ukuthi bona they don't know about the Consumer Protection Act. They if a consumer comes back, there is a 6 months automatic warranty if things get defective within 6 months. So there's a gap on the supplier side also, where those that need it most, that needs to be educated, because part of the benefits that you get by subscribing or signing up to the ombud scheme is that you get education on the CPA at no extra cost, and they're losing out on that.
So now my suppliers are cooperating in the investigation, but what is it that they're not doing or providing or supplying?
Either they do not answer when we are contacting them, telling them that there's a complaint against their business, or sometimes we make a recommendation based on the CPA. We are recommending that you resolve this complaint like this and this and that. Somehow, but they are not coming on board or they're not cooperating. So because of our limited powers as the ombud, if they refuse our recommendation, we are not able to enforce. That's when we close the case and then we refer them to the National Consumer Commission so that they can take over and deal with that business which is refusing to cooperate with the ombud scheme.
Okay, got you. Asishiye lapho ke mbukeli, and after the break we'll be taking some of your calls. For now, let's take another break. We'll be right back. Yilungelo Lakho. Sawumolo futhi mbukele ke 0117140669 and 0117140670 are participation lines. They are on your screens right now. Sishayele khona manje kube ingcenye yenkulumo yethu namhla. You can also send us a WhatsApp to 060-844-9857 or email your thoughts about this show to consumer@sabc.co.za. Let's take our first caller, Senantombe Nhle ulapha ke eThekwini. Sakumukela Ntombe Nhle ehlelweni, sawubona.
Hi Supplier, how are you?
Siyaphila kunjani?
Ngiyaphila.
Siphilile.
Ngicela ukubulisa nabo ma studio.
Siyabonga khuluma. What's on your mind, mama? Khuluma nathi sis.
Yes, Cynthia, I'm not sure if the two ladies will be able to assist me. Yeah, everywhere, and nobody was able to assist. So I'm just hoping they'll be able to give me something or assist.
Okay.
What happened here, Cynthia, I met a lawyer through the estate agent. So they kind of sold me a package deal. I'm the estate, I work with this guy. A transfer of deeds and everything.
Okay.
So we went to our offices, my law firm offices. So now I signed the offer to purchase and everything. After 3 months, collector a title deed. They tell me the lawyer was a freelancer and abamazu gutugupi. So apparently he took 40K from the 100K that I paid till today. I haven't been able to trace him down or get my money back or get any kind of assistance.
Oh, Dombetla, thank you so much for your call. We certainly hope that our guest today will help you with that. Thank you so much. Ladies,
Yeah. Ntombenhle, your services, actually, they fall within the Law Society of South Africa. Every practicing attorney is supposed to be registered because imali le ayithethe normally should be put in a trust account. It's not the lawyer or the firm's money. It's money put in trust. So what you should be doing is that law firm that you had contracted with is still responsible. So go and report them to the Law Society. They will be able to follow up because that was money that was held in trust.
Okay.
Yes.
Was he under e-Fidelity Fund as well?
Yes, because it's part of the Fidelity Fund, because
Yes.
that law firm is supposed to be registered with the Fidelity Fund so that if the lawyer now is amiss or has abused that trust fund account, then she still has claim to her money.
Okay. Now, Queen, what's your thoughts on this?
No, I agree completely with what the commissioner is saying. It's a matter that will not fall in our jurisdiction as the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud. So we'll go with the recommendation by the commissioner.
Okay. Now, what kind of penalties does a service provider or a supplier face if they don't comply with, umthetho CPA?
Penalties will be now the investigation when they have not cooperated with the ombud scheme. Currently, we have 2 ombud schemes that are accredited, which is ourselves dealing with consumer goods and services, and we've got the motor industry ombud. So if a complaint is motor, then it will go to that. So at that level, if we don't resolve, then we will take them to the NCC, who will then, as she indicated earlier, that go into a legalistic space where they investigate and even go to the point of referring to the tribunal, where if the supplier is found to be in contravention of the code, then they can be fined up to 10% of their annual turnover, which is not small money. So it's a lot if you don't cooperate at all these levels and your case end up at the tribunal.
Yeah, and just picking up on that point, Taze, would see yini ke penalty supplier noma service provider lengayitfola nangabeka akalenzela umthetho noma ke what kind of mediation? The mediation is it confined to bring the parties together nangabe khona ke kungabonisani noma ke disagreements, noma does it have to do with fining or imposing a certain penalty on the suppliers?
Yes, from our side, once le matter iyaku prosecution, which is at the tribunal. So what we pray for with tribunal, first of all, is that the first win that we want to get, nasinigeta supplier compliance notice. The first thing is give redress to the consumer. Nangabe consumer patale 40,000, mpatali 40,000. Lapho asikhulumi ngema interest noma ngani, sikhuluma ngemali le mthengi alahlekelwe ngini. But then, nasasifika ku tribunal, then we go to a tribunal. The first thing that we would ask for, sitokela redress. That's the first thing, wherein the consumer will get their refund. And then secondly, we'll ask for an administrative fine, which is a penalty. An administrative fine, as Magesegashito, it's a 10% of your annual turnover or 1 million, but the greater whichever is greater. Now, the turnover is $1 billion. We'll ask for a 10% of $1 billion.
Okay.
So that is where we go. So now business it's like up to $1 million. But then we look at the circumstances. So as we said before, Consumer Goods and Services Ombuds will refer a matter to us. When they refer a consumer, the consumer will come to us, and then we would ask ukuthi steps lower and then we would say, I went to the supplier, I went to Ombuds, and then the supplier was adamant. We would also now, when we ask for a fine, that penalty would say Ombud invested resources in trying to deal with the money. We have also invested resources, and then we would want to be compensated, or the state to be compensated for the funds that have been used in actually getting us to resolve the matter.
Okay.
So you will give the refund to the consumer, and then you will also get an administrative fine. And then when it's a tribunal as well, especially within the lay-bys and all that, wherein you failed to deliver, especially the matter that she spoke about of $1 million worth somebody bought building material. When the person would have refused to repay that 1 million. In that case, then we even go as far as asking for interest of that 1 million that the consumer paid. So going to the tribunal is actually more expensive than resolving it with the ombud, because at that case now, as senga kulmanga ngapuma interest.
Yes.
Senga kulmanga administrative fine. We are just saying to you, just repay the consumer. But once it comes to us, then it's at my interest, it's at an redress, then go be a penalty as well, over and above the redress to the consumer.
So how far does your influence extend in terms of investigation and mediation? So ushelile pambilini ukuthi tindzaba leti involve abameli, they fall under law society. So tindzaba leti involve property purchases, noma accounting issues. Do you also play a role in terms of mediating those?
Yeah, as the commission, it's so interesting because the Consumer Protection Act deals with everything, every service that is that you can think of, unless it is exempted. Now naskhuluma ngalokho leko exempted, siya isikhulume ngabo energy, sikhulume petrol, and then isikhulume like we don't set our prices, but everything that we conduct, normally we product, it's now within the Consumer Protection Act. Even nayo ilona nasikhuluma ngetinto letifana nabo solar panels, we can have compulsory specifications where in asikhuluma nge-light, i-National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications will tell you ukuthi i-light bulb kumele ibe njani, ibe njani, ibe njani. But nase le light bulb ingasebenzi ngendlela lefanele, then it has to be recalled. We come in as the commission to remove that light bulb from the market so that it doesn't cause harm. So we deal with everything unless it is exempted. But then on professional services, like Law Society, the Health Professional Council and all that, we have professional bodies that deals with the conduct of certain professionals in that particular industry.
Got you. All right. Bugeli satsegel kefle flek dinangri. Do you join us after this break? Masanya gat. Welcome to our very final segment. Let's take our next caller. Sibusiso lapha ke eJozi. Siyakumela ehlelweni Sibusiso, sawubona?
Yebo, sanibona bhuti.
Ninjani baba?
Siyaphila njani?
Siphilile, khuluma nathi baba. What's on your mind?
Okay, bhuti, nansi indaba lapha ngicela ukubuza ukuthi ngabe nalo wami umbuzo na unga kind of like what's this? Ulethe laba bomama lapho. In 2020 I signed off, it wasn't actually a signing off with one of the network providers. I'm not sure if it's fine to disclose that.
No, ungalisho ligama ba.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the contract term, I had the contract term at that time, so it finished in 2020. Then in the next thing, they wanted me to update, upgrade. I refused to upgrade. I said, then they offered me a month-to-month thing. Then out of nowhere, when I was busy with that month-to-month paying, out of nowhere, they saw my, when I say, okay, now it has expired, they double the amount that I was paying. And then they said I'm owing them now, like yet still owe them. I'm not sure if it's something that I can kind of like send to the ladies there.
It's a very, very, very valid question. Thank you so much for taking the time to call us. Siyabonga kakhulu ke kushayela. Siyathemba ukuthi ke tinintetfu ke nedvakashtetfu ke titakusita kulolu hlangothi. Matezi, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah,
and it's a very, very popular, complaint that we've received.
It is. But Busiso le problem lelo wohlangane nayo. It's actually more of our problems. Let's wathola every day. So what you do is nangabe I contract yakho expirile. Yes, indeed, it's they will now not terminate it, but it will run month to month. Log lesifuna lomele kusukwende sifuna kwathi ukuthi nangabe bowuthathe le contract, there is a device and there is a imali le bowuyibhadala for the data. So what happens ukuthi nangabe your 24 months contract had both a device and the service. Nakuphela lo 24 months, just check when they show ukuthi you did not even now, they did not from month to month also make you pay for the device that was paid over. So that was the first thing that you have to check. Now, kwesibili now uthi le mali doubled. Because nangabe it doubled, then you have now to ask them, go to them and say, what really made that subscription to be doubled? Because it could be that either in that contract itself, you increase the data itself and then it doubled, but then if there's nothing like that, we would say, just bring the complaint over. You can now send it to the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud so that we can understand EMA facts, because we need to get the contractors understand, we would say, when what really happened. Then based on that, we would be able to assist you. But what we want you to now take heed of is that if you contract a payla 24 months, it's up to you now. After the first month, give them 20 days, noma inyanga, cancel that contract and start afresh. Or if you want to continue, go and ask for another contract so that we be clear contract what have they covered or what is not covered, so that now what to complain then we can be able to assist, because you would even have the contract but you can still go to the supplier. If you don't have the contract, ask for the copy of that contract, then we would be able to assist and know what really is the problem on this one.
All right, Spusiso, thank you so much for your call. We certainly hope that you've been assisted. Now, Queen, your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. So in approaching our office, Spusiso can then send the complaint through the website, or Wamanje app, mobile app, which they can download on their cell phones, and write Yilungelo Lakho, and where possible, they can also send us the contracts, because those are the things that we are going to require. Istolo SCP, where are they based? What are the contract details? So that we can then start with the mediation process between Busiso and the service provider. So those are the things that we will need. A contract and all the details. If there have been any communication, he can also give us lower dates. Those are the things that will take into consideration in mediating the.
Okay.
The go website here to www.cgso.org.za.
Okay.
Noma go call center 086 00000272.
Okay.
That's where you can get us.
All right. Mshengu nitfolakala kuphi kanjani?
Tsina sikhona ku website futhi ku the ncc.org.za. It's a new website.
The NCC.
Yeah,
okay.
www the NCC.
The NCC, right.
But lokulula nje vele nje ubhale the NCC, you will just get the website.
All right. Ladies, siyabonga kakhulu. We can't thank you enough for sharing your valuable insights with us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You're
Great
welcome.
stuff.
Thanks for having us.
Bukele sesifika kanjalo emaphethelweni ehlelo lethu namhla ngithe ngibonge ngethi vakashi lethu ngekuba nathi kuze kube manje ngithanza bonke kanye nani ke babukeli ngekuba nathi kuze kube manje. Please do join us again next time when we'll be bringing you yet another consumer affairs discussion lapha kumahamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Siyatfolakala futhi na ku SABC Plus. Please don't forget to look out for special episodes on all your pension matters brought to you in partnership with the Government Employees Pension Fund. From me Simpiwe Ngongwane and the rest of the team, nisale kahle. Wishing you a great week ahead. Cheers.
Yilungelo